Before we begin, take one moment and breathe. A slow inhale, a slow exhale. Good. You're about to hear a story buried longer than the continents on Earth, a story your ancestors bled to erase, a truth older than the sun. If you are not wearing headphones, put them on. This is not entertainment. This is not fiction. This is a remembrance, a warning. This is Children of Andromeda. Part 1. The Storm That Died. The universe is full of lies that look like truths. One of the oldest lies humanity ever believed was that Jupiter was a simple gas giant, a beautiful bruise in the sky, a swirling cauldron of hydrogen and helium, a distant, harmless titan that spun and roared and minded its own ancient business. Another lie, one even scientists clung to for centuries, was that the great red spot was eternal. It was not. Rhea Anique knew storms. She had grown up in a region on Earth where summer hurricanes spun themselves into existence with no warning, ripping through the coast like living creatures. She'd seen skies open like wounds and oceans rise like hungry jaws. But she had never seen a storm die of old age. At 3:17 Universal Time, she watched Jupiter's great red spot, larger than Earth, older than electricity, stutter on her display. A glitch, she thought. A sensor hiccup. She tapped the control panel. The numbers steadied. Then they dropped again. Wind velocity decreasing. Pressure gradient dropping. Thermal output collapsing. Storm anomaly, she murmured, leaning in. That's impossible. Her observatory sat tucked high in the Carpathian Mountains, shielded from the light pollution of the world below. Outside, a forest slept under frost, the horizon washed silver by moonrise. Inside, monitors glowed like watchful eyes. A chime beeped, then another. Then her entire console erupted into golden alerts. Global Astronomical Network, priority signal Jupiter, cyclonic instability detected all observatories, lock sensors. Rhea's heart tapped the inside of her ribs. The great red spot was unraveling. Its theatric spirals loosened, stretching thin across the void like pulled taffy. Centuries of rotation began to slow, wobbling like a wheel losing balance. The storm's once crimson center faded to a sickly, washed-out orange. And then it collapsed. Not gradually, not elegantly. It imploded, folding inward as if a giant hand pressed down upon it. Gas and cloud peeled away in immense sheets, revealing something beneath Jupiter that should never have been there. A circle, perfect, black, smooth. As if carved by a cosmic blade, Rhea's breath caught, suspended in her throat. God, she whispered, that's a structure. The circle wasn't shadow. It wasn't cloud. It wasn't anything natural. It was too defined, too clean, too purposeful. Something enormous, something solid, rested beneath Jupiter's clouds. Rhea's pulse thumped rapidly, but then a second pulse entered the room. Badum, badum. Her speakers vibrated. Her ribs vibrated. The air vibrated. Badum. A low-frequency, repeating pattern. Not a storm, not atmospheric disturbance. This was a signal, a heartbeat. She swallowed hard. Please tell me that's feedback. It wasn't. As the third pulse shook the observatory, the lights flickered, and then the world went dark. Earth's cities dropped into blackness. Terraforming domes on Mars dimmed. Stations orbiting Saturn blinked out. Even the Dyson ring's luminous net guttered, shrinking to a ghost of its brilliance. The solar system went silent for 6 seconds. 6 seconds of absolute nothing. 6 seconds where every human felt as though something enormous was holding its breath. Then light returned, and with it something
Not
impossible,
small,
not
subtle.
a new world hung, a
behind the
colossal
moon.
black sphere almost as large as Mars' moon Phobos, gleaming like obsidian in the sun's light. Faint blue veins crawled beneath its skin like living circuitry. The solar system's instruments labeled it automatically. Object class, Trans-Neptunian. Body, common name, PlanetX. Designation, verified. Impossible, Rhea breathed. Planet X was a myth, a gravitational ghost, a superstition masquerading as science fiction. And yet, there it was, behind the moon, silent, watching. The object shifted, rotating with slow, deliberate grace, turning toward Earth like an eye focusing. Rhea's display went white, then it changed. A figure stepped out of the brightness. A woman, no, an entity shaped like a woman, towering 7 feet tall. Her skin glowed a warm, rich brown, smooth as polished wood. Her hair spilled in long, dense black curls that drifted as if suspended in invisible water. Her eyes, those eyes, deep brown with a faint, icy blue ring around each iris. She looked like a memory humanity should have had, but somehow lost. Her voice arrived through every device in the system. Soft, warm, ancient. Children of Earth, every hair on Rhea's arms rose. You have grown. The entity's gaze swept over billions of people, calm, mourning, knowing. You once called me Planet X, she said, but that is not my name. Rhea leaned forward, heart pounding. My name is Seraphine. The air seemed to vibrate around the name. I am the keeper of what you once were, and I have returned because the lock has broken. Seraphine's gaze shifted toward Jupiter. You were not born on this world, she said. You fled here, long ago, in a war older than the sun. You fled something that devours thought, something that infects the mind, something that makes puppets of entire civilizations. Rhea's throat tightened. Seraphine continued, voice low and heavy. You named its fragments, the pieces of its will, the Umbreon. The room felt colder. When you fled, Seraphine said, you brought a fragment of the Umbreon with you. You tore it from its hive. You trapped it beneath Jupiter. You wrapped its prison in a storm meant to last forever. Another heartbeat pulsed. Badum, badum. The black sphere beneath Jupiter throbbed in answer. Seraphine lifted her chin. That storm, she whispered, was the lock. And now, because of what you have built, the lock is dying. Rhea stared in horror. The Dyson ring, their greatest triumph. A lattice of solar collectors encircling the sun. It was interfering with Jupiter's storm, weakening the prison. You were meant to remain dim, Seraphine said, soft, quiet, beneath notice. Her eyes grew sorrowful. But you became bright. You always become bright. The heartbeat grew louder. Badum, badum. Her voice softened. And now, he remembers you. Rhea's blood ran cold. He? She whispered. Seraphine nodded once. The fragment you caged is waking, stretching, learning the taste of consciousness again. Alarms burst across Rhea's console. Energy surge, Jupiter mass shift, detected subcloud object. Moving warning, unknown entity in motion. Seraphine spoke one final line. I will help you remember what you were. There is a gift in your blood, waiting to wake. Her image shimmered, trembling, but listen carefully. Everything in the room went still. You must not let it touch you. A final heartbeat shook the observatory. Badum. Then Seraphine vanished. PlanetX dimmed. And Rhea found herself whispering into the shaking dark. What did we wake up? Far across the void, beneath Jupiter's torn clouds, something ancient answered with one slow, hungry pulse. Badum. The first touch. Silence clung to the solar system like frost. After Seraphine vanished, the world didn't erupt in panic the way disaster feed movies predicted. Humanity reacted the way all living things do when a predator's shadow passes overhead. They went quiet. Quiet. In that unnatural, pressurized way that comes before a scream. Rhea and Nikwe stared at the blank hologlass wall where Seraphine had stood moments before. Her heart still hadn't settled. It pulsed unevenly against her ribs, trying to decide whether to run or collapse. The observatory remained hushed, every console glowing with red alerts, every sensor chirping like a nervous animal. Jupiter dominated the center display, a monstrous eye staring back at them. Its clouds churned with confused turbulence where the great red spot used to rage. The hole left behind exposed more of that impossible black sphere beneath the atmosphere. Gas swirled around it like a planetary iris around a pupil. Then, the heartbeat returned. Badum, badum. The monitors trembled. The air trembled. Rhea's bones trembled. She felt a rising pressure in her forehead, like someone pushing gently but firmly against her thoughts, and then something whispered. Not through the speakers, not through her comms. Inside her mind, a single murmur, too soft to understand, too close to ignore. Rhea gasped and stumbled backward, gripping the edge of her chair. No, no, no. The whisper faded. The pressure vanished. She pressed her palms to her temples. "This is happening too fast," she said, voice shaking. Across the observatory, her assistant, a young tech named Ilan, hurried inside, breathless. "Rhea," he said, "do you hear the rumors from the Mars networks? People are reporting headaches, hallucinations. Some say they're hearing..." He hesitated, then swallowed. "Voices." Rhea's mouth went dry. "Voices," she repeated. Ilan nodded, his hands trembling. Like something is brushing their thoughts. That pressure she had felt only minutes ago, that whisper almost too faint to notice, wasn't her imagination. It was the first touch Seraphine warned them about. Rhea steadied her breathing and forced herself back into her chair. "Patch me into the solar network," she said. "We need data from every outpost, every planet, every ship." Ilan nodded and tapped his wrist console. The room filled with screens, feeds, charts, solar radiation maps, deep space transmissions, neurological incident reports. All showed the same pattern. The closer someone was to Jupiter, the stronger the symptoms. People on Callisto, Jupiter's moon, were collapsing from migraines and seizures. Mining crews on Ganymede reported losing chunks of memory. A science outpost on Io had shut down. Its last transmission, a garbled recording of someone screaming, "It's in the static. There's something in the static." Rhea muted the audio, teeth clenched. The Umbreon fragment beneath Jupiter was reaching, searching, tasting, not with hands, not with eyes, with thought. A cold sweat coated her skin. "We need to warn Earth Command," Rhea said. "This is neurological warfare. We're being probed." Ilan hesitated. Probed for what? Rhea stared at the swirling black sphere on Jupiter's surface. "For recognition," she whispered. "Seraphine said it remembers us." Before Ilan could respond, a new alarm shrieked. Psychic interference spike. Source: Jupiter thought distortion wave detected. Warning: broadcast expanding. Rhea barely had time to read the warnings before the wave hit. It wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It was subtle. A whisper brushing the ear. A memory shifting out of place. A sudden flash, like remembering someone's face wrong. Rhea flinched as images flickered behind her eyes. 2 moons in the sky. A silver forest with no wind. Her own reflection, taller, eyes bright like burning glass. She grabbed a table and held on. Around her, equipment flickered in and out. Lights pulsed with the wrong rhythm. The room felt too warm, then too cold. Ilan leaned forward, gripping his head. "Make it stop," he breathed. "Rhea, please, make it stop." Then the wave faded. Not like a storm passing, more like a hand gently withdrawing. Ilan sagged to his knees. Across the display feeds, Rhea watched ships drifting out of alignment as pilots momentarily blacked out. On Mars, several terraforming teams were lying unconscious in the grass. On Europa, 3 scientists had gone silent mid-report, staring blankly at the camera. The Umbreon fragment was learning. "What is it doing?" Ilan whispered. Rhea felt like she already knew. "Searching for the ones without the gift," she said. "Seraphine said some of us have a genetic safeguard, but not all." 3%, Ilan murmured, remembering. Rhea nodded grimly. "The Umbreon is looking for them. Because those without the gift were vulnerable, corruptible, infectable. Shades could slip into their minds like smoke into an open window." Rhea shivered violently. If the Umbreon found one vulnerable mind, it would know exactly how to mimic humanity again. The thought sickened her. Then the room's temperature dropped a few degrees. Ilan and Rhea both froze. It wasn't real cold. It wasn't physical. It was a presence. Rhea's spine stiffened as the whisper returned. Not a sound, not language, but a sensation. Curiosity, recognition, hunger. The Umbreon had found someone. Rhea spun toward the comms panel. "Ilan, patch into Jupiter's nearest outpost." Who was closest when the wave hit? Ilan's hands trembled as he pulled up the data. A list of names scrolled. Dozens, hundreds. Then one name blinked red. Outpost IO7, status, infected crew. Count, 12 vital signs, abnormal. Rhea's blood ran cold. "It's already started," she whispered. A new feed opened automatically. IO7's internal emergency camera. The video flickered with static, but Rhea saw enough. The crew stood motionless. 12 people, 12 bodies, 12 sets of empty eyes staring at the camera. One of them, a man in a silver maintenance suit, smiled. Not a human smile. Too wide, too slow, too practiced. Like something wearing a human face was learning how to move it. The man leaned toward the camera, his head tilted, jaw twitching, smile stretching. Rhea's heart almost stopped. He lifted a hand and traced letters on the wall beside him. A single word. "Hello." Ilan made a strangled noise. The feed cut out. Rhea stood frozen, staring at the black screen. The Umbreon fragment wasn't just awake. It was already inside a mind. Already shaping it. Already speaking. Already watching. Across the system, the heartbeat thrummed. Badum, badum, badum. Rhea swallowed hard. "We need Seraphine," she said quietly. "Right now." Ilan nodded numbly. "But she's silent. PlanetX hasn't responded since it dimmed." Rhea forced herself to think. The Umbreon's first touch. Its first possession. Its first word. "Hello?" This wasn't the beginning of the threat. This was the beginning of the hunt. The gift in our blood. The footage from IO7 did not stay contained. Within minutes, it was copied, encrypted, cracked, reposted, mirrored, slowed down, analyzed, and dissected on every corner of the mesh. By the time central authorities tried to suppress it, half the solar system had already seen the man with the wrong smile writing a single word on the wall. "Hello." Some people laughed it off as a hoax. Some insisted it was an experimental horror feed. But most just went quiet. Because the man's eyes, even through distortion and static, did not look like acting. They looked like something else was wearing him from the inside. Rhea watched the clip again, in the dark of her observatory, frame by frame. The way his fingers flexed too slowly. The way his head tilted at an angle no one ever used in casual conversation. the way his smile widened a fraction of a second after the rest of his face, as if the puppeteer was still learning the strings. She stopped the video and scrubbed backward, pausing at the moment his eyes met the camera. Her skin prickled. There, in the pupils. For one frame, a faint flicker, like oil on water. Like a second pattern, a second presence layered over his gaze. The Umbreon wasn't just possessing him, it was studying through him. The heartbeat from Jupiter thrummed as if in agreement. Badum, badum. Rhea dragged her eyes away from the screen and pulled up central command feeds. Someone, somewhere, had to be doing more than watching horror clips and writing panicked commentary. A new emblem filled her display. A silver ring encircling a stylized sun. Solar Council emergency session. Then live. The feed opened on a vast chamber, a half-virtual, half-physical council, where representatives from Earth, Mars, the Dyson habitats, Luna, and the outer colonies gathered. Some sat in actual seats. Others flickered as hollow avatars, faces half-lit by floating data. In the center of the chamber, a three-dimensional projection of Jupiter loomed, its scarred face turned toward the unseen audience. The dead storm's hollow, with its exposed black sphere, glared like a wound. A moderator spoke, voice clipped, strained. You've all seen the evidence, the storm's collapse, the revelation of the artificial body beneath Jupiter, the arrival of PlanetX. He faltered, then corrected himself. Of Seraphine. Behind him, another screen played Seraphine's message on mute, her tall, luminous form addressing humanity with that sorrowful calm. We have confirmation, the moderator continued. The wave that passed through the system 17 minutes after her appearance was not random. Neurological scans show a spike in activity across all sapient populations. The closer to Jupiter, the stronger the effect. A woman in a Mars red uniform leaned forward. We're calling it a thought pressure gradient, she said. It's not just EM interference, something pressed against our minds. Gentle, but deliberate. Like a knock, someone else muttered. Rhea watched their faces carefully. Most were composed, schooled into political neutrality. A few cracked around the edges, eyes too wide, lips pressed thin. And the IO7 incident? Asked a lunar representative, voice quiet. Silence dropped over the chamber. A moment later, a hazy, still image appeared in the center of the room. 12 crew members standing still in their suits, faces turned toward the camera. The man with the wrong smile at the front. Even frozen, he looked wrong. The moderator cleared his throat. We have lost contact with IO7, he said. The station is under quarantine. No ships are permitted within 50,000 kilometers until we fully understand the nature of this infection. Rhea grimaced. We don't have that kind of time, she whispered. As if responding to her thought, the chamber's lights dimmed. Every hollow panel flickered. Behind the moderator, Jupiter's vast projection warped for a heartbeat into something else. A dark, shifting mass that suggested eyes where there were none. Then the distortion snapped back, and Seraphine appeared in the center of the council chamber. She didn't flicker in like a transmission or flash in like a graphic. She was simply there, as if she had always been standing in that spot, and everyone was only now noticing. Her presence carried weight, even through a secondary relay. Rhea felt it from her observatory, a sense of gravity, of focus, like a star thoughtfully choosing where to shine. Children of Earth, she said, this council is not secret. He is listening. A low murmur rippled through the delegates. The moderator stiffened. You mean the Umbreon fragment? I mean the will inside Jupiter, Seraphine said. He tests the edges of your minds as you speak. You have already seen his first experiments. The image of Io7 appeared briefly beside her. 12 pale faces, one twisted smile. Those are not yet shades, Seraphine continued. They are prototypes, echoes, flawed attempts at wearing your flesh. Flawed. Ria's stomach twisted. How far from flawed to perfected? Seraphine lifted her gaze, and for a moment, Ria had the unsettling sensation that those strange, halo-ringed eyes were looking straight at her through layers of atmosphere, stone, and circuits. You asked what you did, Seraphine said. You asked what you woke up. The council chamber went silent. You woke up a memory, she said simply. A broken piece of a much larger hunger. It remembers you, but dimly. It sniffs at your edges, trying to match your scent to the taste it once knew. Her eyes hardened. You must not let it learn the full pattern of your minds. If it does, it will adapt. It will refine its shades. It will move from mimicry to mastery. Ria could almost feel the collective shudder across the system. The man in the Mars red uniform spoke again. You said there's a gift, he said. In our blood. Something our ancestors left us. His voice carried the weight of someone clinging to that idea, like a lifeline. Seraphine nodded. You were not fools, she said quietly. You were desperate, but not fools. When you chose to erase what you were, when you chose to be reborn small, you refused to leave your descendants wholly defenseless. You asked for a lock and a seed. A seed, the lunar representative repeated. A failsafe encoded into your genome, Seraphine said, silent, dormant for eons, waiting for a specific trigger. She spread her hands, and strands of light like DNA helices spiraled into existence around her, complex, shifting blue coils. When I returned, the trigger condition was met. My presence in this system is the key. I can wake the seed. Ria's heart jumped. You can make us immune? Someone asked. Most of you, Seraphine said. That word, most, landed like a stone in still water. Ria leaned closer to her screen. What about the rest? She murmured. Seraphine answered without being asked. Approximately 97% of your population carries the sequence, she said. 3% does not. A map of human habitats flashed into the air. Earth, Mars, the Dyson Ring, Luna, the belts, the moons. Red dots winked across it like scattered embers. Those without the gift are open doors, Seraphine said. If the Umbreon learns to fully inhabit them, it will have a template, a starting point. Her expression tightened. If your kind had more time, I could help adjust them. But we do not have more time. A heavy silence settled. So what does this gift do? The Mars representative asked at last. You said it's not just immunity. Seraphine's gaze softened, almost fond. It is. Recognition, she said. Your ancestors fought the Umbreon for centuries. Their instincts, what to look for, what to avoid, how to feel when the shadow brushes a thought, were refined in fire. They encoded fragments of those instincts into your flesh. When I wake the gift, you will not become superhuman. You will simply remember how to see the dark. Ria felt her chest tighten with something like grief and anger mixed. You mean we've been living with blindfolds on? She said softly. Seraphine turned slightly, as though the faint, tiny sound of Ria's voice had reached her through the maze of cables and relays. Yes, she said, by your own choice, to survive. The council members exchanged looks, some hopeful, some horrified. How do you activate this gift? The moderator asked. Seraphine's answer was so simple it felt cruel. I sing to your blood, Light spilled from her hands, lines of energy tracing designs in the air too complex for any human tongue. She stood taller, the luminous veins in her arms and throat brightening. When she spoke again, it wasn't in any known language. It wasn't, strictly speaking, words. It was resonance. Rhea didn't hear a song through her speakers. She felt it behind her ribs, vibrating through bone and marrow. A deep, thrumming, layered tone that seemed to come from very far away and very deep inside at the same time. Her heart stuttered. Her skin prickled. Memories that weren't hers flickered behind her eyelids. A sky with 3 suns. A city balanced on invisible pillars above a glowing sea. People who looked like her, but taller, eyes bright, moving with the confidence of a species that had never learned the word small. The sensation built, then softened, then settled into a quiet hum under her heartbeat. Rhea gasped and grabbed the edge of her console. "Ilan," she called. "Report. What are you feeling?" No answer. She turned. Ilan stood staring at nothing, eyes wide as if he were seeing through the walls. "Ilan," Rhea said again, more sharply. He blinked. "I saw something," he whispered. "I think a corridor, metallic, curved. There was a red sun in the distance." He looked at his hands like they belonged to someone else. "And I wasn't afraid," he added, sounding almost surprised. On the central council feed, the delegates reacted in similar scattered chaos. Some clutched at their chests, some sobbed. A few collapsed to their knees, overwhelmed. Others straightened in their seats, posture subtly changed, as if they'd just remembered how to stand like warriors instead of administrators. Seraphine watched them with something too complex to be simple pride. "It has begun," she said. "How do we know if it worked?" someone demanded. "How do we know who has this gift and who doesn't?" Seraphine spread her fingers. "You will know soon," she answered. "The next time he brushes you, the Umbreon. He will not stop testing your minds," she continued. "But now, most of you will feel the difference between your own thoughts and his intrusion. The gift does not make you invincible. It makes you aware." Rhea swallowed. "And the 3%?" she asked. Seraphine's eyes darkened. "Can you see them?" she said quietly. The map of the system flared back into the air. This time, the red dots, those without the gift, glowed brighter. They were scattered across habitats and planets, but clustered more heavily in older populations, isolated outposts, and fringe communities. "They will be the first targets," Seraphine said. "If the Umbreon fully inhabits even one of them, you will be fighting a ghost wearing a human's life as camouflage." Someone swore under their breath. "Can we isolate them?" a Dyson representative asked. "Quarantine?" Seraphine shook her head slowly. "To lock them away is to mark them," she said. "He will feel your fear and know exactly where to look." Rhea hated that this made sense. "So what do we do?" she asked. "For now," Seraphine said, "you remain still." The word still sounded wrong in the context of what was happening. "You observe," she said. "You report any unnatural behavior, any missing time, any wrongness. You do not trust every smile. You do not trust every memory." A cold, collective realization moved through the council. Trust would be the first casualty of this war. "And you prepare," Seraphine added. "For what?" the moderator asked, though he already knew the answer. "To descend," she said simply, "into Jupiter, to face the fragment in its cage before it tears the bars wide open." Rhea's breath caught. "We're going down there?" she whispered. Seraphine's gaze turned to Jupiter's looming projection. "You cannot run this time," she said softly. "There is nowhere left to run. The only way forward is through the storm's grave." Rhea's pulse hammered. She imagined a ship cutting into Jupiter's thick atmosphere, plunging through bands of roiling gas toward that impossible black sphere. She heard metal groaning under pressure, instruments screaming warnings, and the steady, patient heartbeat of something ancient waiting below. Badum. She realized she was pressing her hand flat over her sternum, as if to steady her own heart. "I will guide those who go," Seraphine said, "but I cannot walk there for you. My form, PlanetX, as you called it, is not built for that descent. You must send your own." The chamber erupted into overlapping arguments. Logistics, ethics, volunteers, protests. Rhea barely heard them. Something else filled her ears now. A faint echo, a double beat, her own heartbeat. And under it, a softer thrum. Not the Umbreon's pulse, something warmer, finer. The gift humming quietly in her blood. She closed her eyes. In the darkness behind her eyelids, she saw a corridor of silver metal, curved walls alive with faint flowing patterns. People striding past her, people whose faces she could almost recognize and yet had never seen. She felt the weight of a weapon in her hand that didn't exist anymore. She felt the certainty of someone who had fought the Umbreon before and lived long enough to regret surviving. When she opened her eyes, she knew two things with terrifying clarity. First, the gift had awakened in her. Second, if anyone was going to walk into Jupiter's shadow, she would be among them. The Umbreon did not wait long to test Seraphine's work. 3 hours after the council session, another wave rippled outward from Jupiter. This one was subtler. No dramatic pain. No visions that bent reality. On the surface, it felt like nothing more than a brief lapse in attention, like losing a thought mid-sentence. Across the system, billions of people paused, frowned, and then carried on. Except those with the gift felt the difference. Rhea was reviewing sensor data when it brushed against her. The best comparison her human brain could find was the feeling of standing in a crowded room and realizing that someone is staring directly at you from across it. Not touching, not speaking, just focusing. A thin, cold line traced the edges of her mind. Not quite inside, not quite outside. Her every instinct screamed, "Don't move, don't think too loudly, don't let it know you feel it." Then, like a snail withdrawing its antennae, the sensation retreated. Rhea exhaled shakily. "Did you feel that?" Ilan asked quietly behind her. She turned. "Yes," she said, "and I felt it fail." His shoulders slumped with a mix of fear and relief. "Then the gift works," he murmured. Rhea nodded, but her expression remained grim. "It works for us," she said. "But somewhere out there..." Her gaze drifted to the glowing red dots on the system map. Someone just let the shadow in. Descent orders. Rhea didn't sleep. Not because she didn't want to, because sleep didn't feel safe anymore. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt it. The faint tapping at the edge of her thoughts. The Umbreon fragment didn't yet know how to enter the minds of those with the gift, but it knew they were there. Lights behind frosted glass. Shapes it couldn't yet decipher. But it was learning. And every time it touched the edges of her consciousness, she felt a pressure, like fingers drumming faintly on a locked door. By sunrise, if sunrise meant anything in a world where most people lived under domes or orbital stations, orders had spread across the system. A descent team would approach Jupiter, not to confront the Umbreon head-on, not yet. The goal was reconnaissance. Map the artificial sphere beneath the clouds. Determine its structure. Confirm whether the Umbreon fragment had a physical core. And above all, understand how close it was to breaking free. Rhea knew she'd be chosen long before her name was officially listed. People with awakened gifts were being cycled into priority roles: security, analysis, defense. Those without the gift were temporarily grounded from high-risk operations, though they weren't told why. The Solar Council feared panic, so they used softer words. Words like fatigue risk, cognitive overload, and mental strain susceptibility. But everyone with the gift could see the truth behind the words. Those without the gift were vulnerable. They were possible hosts, possible anchors for the Umbreon. Rhea sat at her workstation, staring at the assignment packet displayed in floating blue text. Mission designation, Stormfall. One primary objective, Jovian Descent Team Lead, Captain Arian Durand, Senior Science Officer, Rhea Anique. Below that was a single line typed in manual override, not system printed. Seraphine has requested your presence. Her pulse quickened. As if summoned by the thought, light rippled through the observatory. It didn't flash like a projection or hum like a hollow feed. It cascaded, soft and shimmering, like liquid moonlight poured into the room. Seraphine stepped through the glow. Every time Rhea saw her, she felt the same sensation, a strange combination of awe, sadness, familiarity, and something she couldn't name, a gravitational pull that wasn't physical. Rhea Anique, Seraphine said, voice warm and heavy with memory. Your gift resonates more cleanly than most. You will be needed for what lies below. Rhea rose slowly. What exactly lies below? Seraphine turned her gaze toward Jupiter, visible even from Earth as a bright, swollen eye rising above the horizon. An echo of a mind that once stretched across thousands of star systems, she said, now diminished, but not broken. Rhea shivered. You said the Umbreon fragment remembers us. It remembers hunger, Seraphine corrected gently. Hunger is not the same as memory, but hunger leads to innovation. Rhea swallowed hard. The shades, Seraphine nodded. It is learning to shape them, slowly, imperfectly, but each attempt brings it closer. Rhea exhaled shakily. And going down there helps us because it is still weak, Seraphine said, still fractured, still confused. If you understand its cage, its structure, its weaknesses, you may slow its rise. Slow, Rhea repeated, not stop. Seraphine's expression turned sorrowful. Stopping it will not be possible until another war is fought, but that war does not begin today. Her gaze softened. Today, you gather knowledge. Tomorrow, you survive. Rhea didn't know whether to be comforted or terrified. Before she could speak again, an alert chimed through her comms. Stormfall 1, crew assembly, in 20 minutes. Seraphine's form flickered, but not from signal distortion. She was fading by choice. You will not go alone, she said. Those with awakened gifts will walk beside you, and I will whisper when needed. Whisper, Rhea echoed. Seraphine's eyes glowed faintly. Down there, she said, speech will not always reach you, but thought can travel where breath cannot. Rhea stared at her. You can speak directly into our minds. I can guide, Seraphine said, but only if you allow it. Rhea nodded slowly. I'll allow it. Seraphine reached out, not touching, but extending a hand of light mere inches from Rhea's cheek. You have more of the old blood than most, she said softly. Do not let that fact frighten you. Let it strengthen you. With that, Seraphine dissolved into shimmering dust, leaving Rhea alone. The hangar where Stormfall 1 assembled was a cavern of steel and humming power. The descent ship, the DSV Harrow, sat at the center like a spearhead forged for war. Not sleek, not beautiful, functional, brutal. Armored against pressures and storms no human vessel was designed to survive. Captain Ariane Durand stood at the foot of the boarding ramp, reviewing data on a glowing wrist slate. He looked up as Rhea approached, tall, weathered, eyes like sharpened glass. A soldier carved by necessity, not pride. "You're our science lead," he said. "Seraphine personally flagged you. Means you're either invaluable or cursed." Rhea huffed a nervous breath. "Can't it be both?" Durand cracked the faintest ghost of a smile. "In my experience, it usually is." Crew members filed in behind him, 10 total, 2 engineers, 3 soldiers, 2 atmospheric specialists, 1 medic, 1 communications officer, and Rhea, all 10, carried the gift. All had the same tightness in their eyes, the look of people who'd seen the IO-7 footage and understood the stakes. Durand lifted his voice. "Listen up. This isn't a combat mission, not unless things go wrong. We descend into Jupiter's upper layers, then below the cloud line. We map the structure, we analyze the sphere. We do not linger." One soldier raised a hand. "Sir, what about the entity?" Durand's jaw tightened. "We avoid direct contact at all costs. If it brushes your mind, if you feel pressure, disorientation, memory shifts, you alert the team leader immediately." He didn't say what happened if someone reacted wrong. He didn't have to. Rhea's eyes drifted toward the launch rails where the Harrow waited. Jupiter filled half the sky on the display windows. Massive, swollen, cracked where the storm had died. The exposed black sphere beneath the clouds pulsed faintly. Ba-dum, ba-dum. Every heartbeat from that thing seemed to echo in Rhea's chest. Durand followed her gaze. "You afraid?" he asked quietly. Rhea considered lying, but this was not a mission built for lies. "I'm terrified," she said. Durand nodded. "Good. Fear keeps people alive." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "But don't forget this. Seraphine chose you. She didn't choose me, or my soldiers, or the engineers. She chose you." "I don't know why," Rhea said. Durand shrugged. "Maybe you will by the time we come back up." "If we come back up." Rhea didn't say it, but both of them felt the weight of it. A deep hum filled the hangar as the Harrow powered on. The floor vibrated. The hull glowed with activation sigils. The air smelled faintly of ozone and recycled coolant. "Board up," Durand said. The crew moved as one. Rhea took her place at the science console inside the main cabin. Dim lights illuminated curved walls reinforced with pressure-absorbing mesh. Vibration dampeners thrummed beneath the floor. The descent harness wrapped around her shoulders like a mechanical embrace. Durand's voice boomed over the intercom. "Stormfall 1, launch sequence initiating." The Harrow shifted. Engines whined. The world outside the viewport tilted as the vessel locked into the magnetic descent rails. A single pulse echoed distantly. Badum. Jupiter waited below. Durand's voice hardened. "Hold fast. We drop in 30. The crew braced. Rhea closed her eyes. Somewhere deep inside her chest, the gift hummed. Soft and steady. It didn't calm her or numb her or hide her fear. It anchored her. She felt like she was standing in 2 worlds at once. Here, strapped inside a human vessel, built with human hands. And somewhere else, walking through a shining corridor built by people she couldn't remember, but somehow still missed. 20, Durand announced. Rhea exhaled slowly. 15. The hum beneath her skin strengthened. 10. Her heartbeat matched the rhythm. 5. Seraphine's voice brushed the back of Rhea's mind, soft as a sigh. "I am with you." 1. The Harrow dropped. The pressure slammed into Rhea's body. The vessel plummeted like a falling star. The hangar vanished behind them, as Jupiter's massive form grew larger in the forward screens, bands of swirling color stretching across an endless sky. Clouds churned, lightning flickered in distant storms. The void between ship and planet shrank rapidly. Atmosphere roared against the hull like a beast awakening. Inside the cabin, the crew tightened their grips. Duran shouted through the intercom, "Entering Jovian upper atmosphere. Brace!" The Harrow hit the first cloud layer like a hammer striking water. Everything shook. Rhea felt gravity punch upward against her spine. Her vision blurred. The cabin lights flickered. But through the chaos, another sensation emerged. A quiet brush against her thoughts. A cold, curious pressure. The Umbreon fragment had noticed them. Rhea clenched the armrest. "Oh God," she whispered. "It knows we're here." The Harrow plunged through the clouds, deeper into Jupiter's bruised sky. The heartbeat rose to greet them. Badum, badum, badum. A welcome, a warning, or both. No one knew. The cage in the clouds, the Harrow fell through Jupiter like a stone swallowed by an endless sea. Clouds smashed against its hull in waves of pressure and lightning. The vessel shuddered, metal groaning in protest. Outside, the colors of the upper atmosphere blurred. Faded oranges, bruised golds, streaks of electric white flashing through churning bands. Rhea's harness dug into her shoulders. Her vision pulsed at the edges. "Altitude?" she forced out. "Dropping fast," one of the engineers replied, voice strained. "Pressure climbing. Hull integrity stable. For now." Captain Duran's tone cut through the turbulence. "Ride it. No overcorrection. The Harrow was built for this." The vessel plunged deeper. The clouds thickened, turning from translucent vapor to something that looked almost viscous. Lightning flickered in slow, crawling arcs instead of sharp bolts, like the sky itself was thinking about where to put each strike. The gift in Rhea's blood hummed harder. The deeper they went, the stronger the pressure at the edge of her thoughts became. The Umbreon fragment was close now, not a distant presence testing the outskirts of the system. A weight, a mind, watching. Her ears popped. The console glowed with fresh data, density readings, energy gradients, gravitational anomalies. One value made her pulse spike. "Captain," she said, "the artificial mass is close. We're almost at the sphere." Duran's reply came rough. "Visual in 30. The Harrow cut through one final layer of roiling cloud, and the universe opened. It felt like breaking the surface of an ocean into a sudden air pocket. The turbulence vanished. The lightning ceased. The orange murk fell away behind them like a curtain pulled aside. And in the impossible clearing beneath the clouds, the prison revealed itself. It hung there in the gas like a god's forgotten marble. A colossal black sphere embedded within Jupiter's body, its surface both impossibly smooth and crawling with barely visible patterns. It didn't reflect light so much as bend it, swallowing colors and bleeding them back in faint, unnatural hues. Thin streams of gas scraped along its edges, curling and twisting as they brushed against an invisible field around the sphere, like water around a stone. "By every star," someone whispered. "It's solid." Rhea's throat tightened. She had seen the images before, the crude early scans, the low-resolution feeds from orbital platforms. None of that had prepared her for this. Being this close, she felt the scale in her bones. The sphere was vast, large enough to dwarf entire cities. Its surface seemed calm, but the instruments screamed otherwise. "Energy readings are off the charts," one engineer said. "It's holding something, containing it. I don't even know what half these numbers mean." Rhea did. They meant strain. The prison was under stress. Small arcs of dark light flickered across the sphere's surface, colorless lightning, if such a thing could exist. Space around it shimmered in localized distortions, as though gravity itself were having second thoughts. "We're picking up structural patterning," another voice said. "Not smooth. There's architecture, paneling, maybe seams." "Zoom in," Durand ordered. The ship's external cameras obeyed. The sphere's surface magnified, its smoothness resolving into fractal complexity. At first glance, it looked like seamless metal. On closer inspection, there were interlocking hexagonal plates, each etched with faint, shifting sigils that changed too fast for the human eye to follow. It looked less like a constructed object, and more like a cell membrane. Rhea swallowed. "Seraphine?" she whispered in her mind, not entirely sure if the thought would reach. "I am here." The reply came gentle and clear, threaded through her thoughts instead of layered over them. It didn't feel like an intrusion, more like an echo in a familiar chamber. "You stand at the edge of what your ancestors feared most," Seraphine said. "The shell they built around a piece of the Umbreon." "What are we actually looking at?" Rhea asked silently. "A containment field? A planet they carved open and filled?" "A construct grown around the fragment," Seraphine replied. "It is both machine and wound. They used matter and bent space lattices to slow its thoughts, to cage it in time as well as in place." "Slow its thoughts?" Rhea repeated. "The Umbreon does not move the way you do," Seraphine said. "It moves through possibilities." They forced it to think more slowly, to trap it in a single moment stretched painfully long. Rhea looked at the arcs of strange lightning crawling over the sphere's surface. "How long does the moment last?" "It is ending," Seraphine answered. The harrow circled the sphere at a cautious distance, engines thrumming softly. Durand glanced back toward Rhea. "We need a way in," he said, "if there is one." Rhea scanned the surface, eyes tracking the shifting sigils, the seams between hexagonal plates. At first, there was nothing. Then, as they passed over the northern quadrant, she saw it. "Hold," she said. "Back 3 degrees, starboard roll." Durand relayed the adjustment. The harrow rotated, engines firing in controlled bursts. A pattern came into view. Nestled between what looked like overlapping plates, there was a depression, circular, with radiating channels like the petals of a mechanical flower. The sigils around it moved more slowly, as if they were part of a different system. "Looks like a port," one engineer said. "A lock," Rhea corrected. "Or a hatch." "Think we can open it?" Durand asked. Rhea stared at the pattern, the way the channels converged. "I don't think we can," she said. "I think it opens from the inside." The cabin went quiet. Seraphine, Rhea thought, pulse picking up. Did our ancestors leave a key? "They left many," Seraphine replied. "Most of them were broken when the war ended. But one remains." Silence stretched. "Where?" Rhea asked. "In you." The words hit her harder than the descent had. "In me," she repeated. "In those who carry the strongest echo of the first bloodlines," Seraphine clarified. "The ones who stood on the final lines when the Umbreon was caged." "You are not unique, Rhea Anique, but you are one of the closest matches I have found." Rhea's hands tightened on the console. "What do I do?" "Listen." The gift hummed louder, syncing with the faint, distant heartbeat. Badum, badum. For a moment, sound and sensation overlapped. The beat from the sphere and the rhythm in her chest. Rhea closed her eyes. She reached, not outward into Jupiter, but inward, toward a place in her mind that had only recently stopped feeling empty. Memories she'd never lived stirred like dust in a shaft of light. Standing at the edge of a different black structure, under a sky with 3 moons. holding a device shaped like a ring of braided light, speaking words in a language that tasted like metal and citrus. She opened her eyes. "Bring us closer," she said, "to that flower lock." Duran studied her for half a heartbeat, then nodded. "Harrow, close approach, minimal thrust. Let's not scrape the devil's door." The vessel eased forward. The sphere grew giant in the viewport until the flower filled their vision, an intricate mandala of lines and grooves, some etched, some pulsing faintly from within. Rhea unbuckled her harness. The medic cursed softly. "What are you doing?" "Trusting a dead version of myself," she said. She stepped up to the console, placing her palm flat against the screen displaying the lock pattern. "Seraphine," she thought, "guide me." "Not this time," Seraphine answered. "This is what the gift is for." Rhea took a slow breath. Then she let her mind follow the grooves. Not physically, not with touch, with attention. The channels radiating from the central depression formed repeating clusters, each with slight variations, like a code written in geometry. She felt certain arcs pull at her more than others, like notes in a chord that resonated more deeply. She traced a path in her mind, line to line, cluster to cluster, connecting them in a pattern that felt both new and deeply familiar. As she completed the sequence in her thoughts, the sphere responded. The grooves lit up. One by one, they flared with pale blue-white light, following the path she'd traced. The energy spilled outward, then folded inward again, converging on the central depression. The sphere trembled, the heartbeat spiked. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. "Energy surge," the engineer shouted. "Massive local spike. Hold position," Duran barked. The flower rotated. The central circle twisted, petals sliding over one another in a way that suggested both metal and muscle. With a sound that no air should have been able to carry, something opened. A gap appeared. A circular iris dilating, revealing a tunnel descending into the sphere's interior. It was lined with moving patterns, faint, breathing light and dark that seemed to recoil from the open air. Atmospheric readings poured in. "Pressure, stable," the medic said, incredulous. "Radiation levels?" Durand asked sharply. "Higher than normal space, lower than the Jovian storm," came the reply. "Can we survive in there?" he demanded. "With full suits," the medic said, "for a while." Rhea felt the Umbreon's presence swell. It was not an explosion of malice, not a storm of fury. It was attention. Something inside the sphere had turned fully toward them. "You have its focus now." Seraphine's voice brushed across Rhea's mind. "Be careful what you show it." "Too late to turn back," Duran murmured. He wasn't wrong. The moment they'd opened the lock, the game had changed. The fragment inside knew there were still minds outside its cage that remembered the old patterns, that could reach locked systems. That meant they were a threat, or a resource, or both. Duran straightened. "Stormfall 1, he said, his voice steady despite the tension. "We came here for data on the cage. That means we put eyes inside." Rhea looked at the open tunnel, yawning ahead of them, and felt a deep, bone-deep dread. "Not the whole crew," she said. "A small team. If something happens." Duran nodded once, agreed. He scanned the faces in the cabin, eyes landing on Rhea, then the soldiers, then the engineer, with the calmest hands. "3 inside," he said. "Rhea, you're one of them." Of course she was. The gift pulsed in her veins like a second pulse. Her ancestors had stood here before in some other sky, listening to some other heartbeat. They had chosen to cage the Umbreon instead of die fighting it. Now another version of their bloodline was stepping into the same kind of darkness. hoping to delay the inevitable one more time. She rose. The soldier beside her, a woman named Kasim, checked her rifle, even though none of them knew if bullets would mean anything to a creature that lived primarily in thought. The engineer, Vale, sealed his suit, eyes flicking between the open tunnel and his wrist display. "Last chance to say this is a bad idea," he muttered. "It is a bad idea," Rhea said, "but it's also the only idea." The airlock cycled open. Suit seals clicked. Helmet hoods lit up. Internal oxygen hissed. For a brief moment, the sound of their own breathing was the loudest thing in the world. Duran clasped Rhea's forearm. "You feel anything pushing into your head," he said. "And I mean anything. You say it out loud. No heroics. No quiet suffering." "Understood," Rhea said. He searched her eyes for a second longer. "Come back," he said quietly. She nodded, throat tight. Then she, Kasim and Vale stepped into the lock, and the Harrow's hull closed behind them. The outer door opened onto the sphere's interior entrance. No thunder, no monstrous roar. Just silence. The tunnel ahead glowed faintly, with a color that wasn't quite any known color, more absence than presence. The walls were smooth, yet alive with shifting impressions, as though something beneath the surface moved in response to their nearness. Rhea stepped forward. Her boots touched the sphere's surface with a slight, unnerving delay, as if the concept of contact had to travel just a heartbeat further than it should. Gravity felt, not wrong exactly, tilted. Pressure
As if
up
stable,
and down were
Vale
being negotiated in real
Gravity
time. Weak but consistent. Atmosphere thin, but our suits can handle it indefinitely. "Does this feel like a mouth to anyone else?" Kasim muttered. "Please don't call it a mouth," Rhea said. She touched the tunnel wall with gloved fingers. There was no texture her suit could register, no molecules flaking away. Yet her gift stirred sharply, like a bird slamming into the bars of its cage. Images flashed behind her eyes. The same structure, unlit, under a sky filled with streaks of burning ships. Voices shouting in a language that carved lines of light into the air. Someone, a woman whose face Rhea almost recognized, pressing a glowing ring into the sphere's surface and screaming, "Hold him! Hold him!" Rhea stumbled. "Rhea," Vale said. "You good?" She nodded, breath shaky. "Just echoes," she said. They moved deeper. The tunnel opened into a chamber. It was both enormous and claustrophobic. The space expanded outward, but the walls seemed to curve back over them in ways that defied normal geometry. They weren't in a sphere. They were in a folded space, a pocket carved out of reality and bent into a knot. At its center, suspended in midair, hung a cluster of dark shapes. They weren't solid, not exactly. They looked like shadows cast by objects that weren't there. Tangled, fractal silhouettes layered over one another. As Rhea stared, one fragment peeled away from the cluster and drifted toward them. Kasim raised her rifle instinctively. "Hold fire," Rhea said sharply. The shadow stopped a few meters away. It hung there, flickering. Its edges shivered like static around an old antenna. Then it smoothed, slowly, painfully, into a shape. Humanoid. Roughly. A head, shoulders, arms, legs, no face. Just a blank, featureless oval where eyes and mouth should be. Rhea's skin crawled inside her suit. The Umbreon fragment had noticed them, and it was trying to say hello again. Except this time, the greeting wasn't aimed at the camera. It was aimed at their minds. The pressure hit Rhea like an icy wave. It didn't shove. It brushed. A request, not a demand. "Let me in." It didn't use words, but that was the feeling behind it. Her gift flared. The pressure met an invisible barrier just beneath her thoughts and scraped along it like nails on glass. Rhea gritted her teeth. "Do you feel that?" Kasim gasped. Vale swore under his breath. It's in my head. It's in my head. Hold the line, Rhea said through clenched teeth. It can't push through. Not easily. Not into us. The shadow tilted its blank head. The pressure increased, probing, searching for weak points. Rhea's vision flickered at the edges. She saw flashes again, moons that weren't there, corridors she'd never walked. Then something inside her snapped into place. She saw the pressure for what it was. Not a divine force, not a god's hand, but a clumsy tool, a tendril, a test. You're slower than you used to be, aren't you? She whispered. The shadow paused. She felt surprise, not hers, its. The fragment hadn't expected to be seen this clearly. It hadn't expected resistance from within a mind. Rhea took a careful breath. We've met before, she said, voice shaking. Not me, but my blood, my people. We caged you once. The pressure pushed harder, then stopped. The shadow's head tilted again, just a fraction. Its faceless surface rippled. For one horrifying heartbeat, a human face tried to form there. Features pushed out of the dark. An eye, a nose, the curve of a mouth, like something sculpting flesh out of fog. Trying to remember how it went, the face was almost hers. Then it collapsed. The shadow recoiled. Rhea felt a flash of frustration. Rage, hunger, not hers. Then it withdrew, drifting back toward the cluster. The pressure lifted. Rhea doubled over, hands braced on her knees, dragging air into her lungs in ragged pulls. Kazim's voice shook through the comms. What just happened? Rhea straightened slowly. It tested us, she said. And we held. For how long? Vale asked. Rhea looked up at the cluster of darkness swirling at the chamber's core, feeling the weight of its attention fading, but not gone. As long as we remember how, she said. Seraphine's presence brushed her thoughts like a hand on a shoulder. Seraphine's presence brushed her thoughts like a hand on a shoulder. You have taken your first step into his cage and walked back with your mind intact, she said. That matters. Does it change anything? Rhea asked silently. It changes everything, Seraphine answered. Now he knows the cage is not empty, that the children of Andromeda still carry teeth. Rhea's gaze swept the chamber walls. Symbols shifted slowly across the surface, like a heartbeat rendered in geometry. The strain readings in her HUD climbed, ever so slightly. Captain, she said into her comm, we've made contact. We've confirmed mental pressure thresholds and the structure's internal configuration. Can you get us more? Duran asked. His voice was steady, but the tightness was there. Rhea considered the cluster of shadow at the center of the chamber. You told me we're here for data, not to start the war early, she said. Right now, it doesn't know how to get inside us. If we push deeper, we might teach it more than we learn. A beat of silence. Then Durand exhaled. Copy, he said. We've got enough to keep every analyst in the system busy for weeks. Return to the Harrow. We'll send what you've seen to Seraphine and the Council. Rhea nodded. As they turned back toward the tunnel entrance, she felt the Umbreon fragment watching them leave. Not thwarted, not defeated. Curious. It had tasted resistance in a new shape. And hunger loves a challenge. The Harrow broke away from the sphere and began to climb back through the pocket in the clouds. The turbulence returned with a vengeance, battering the hull. The ship's structural lattice flexed, absorbing the abuse. In the cabin, suits unsnapped, harnesses loosened. Faces looked pale and shaken, but alive. Duran stood beside Rhea's console. Well? He asked. Rhea stared at the sphere receding through the viewport. We opened the cage and walked inside, she said. We met a piece of what's in there. It tried to get in. It failed. But it learned something, Duran said. She nodded. And so did we. She sent the data packet to the Council and Seraphine. Internal structure readings, neural pressure logs, visual capture of the proto-shade. Minutes later, Seraphine's voice echoed through every speaker on the Harrow. You did well, she said. We now know the fragment is still slowed, still bound by the old lattice. But the lattice is straining. We have less time than I hoped. Ria's stomach knotted. How long? There was a long pause. Years, Seraphine said at last. Not decades. Duran let out a slow breath. Then we plan, he said. We harden, we train, we build. We remember, Ria added. Outside, Jupiter's clouds swallowed the view of the sphere. The great red spot was gone forever, replaced by an invisible wound in the gas. A scar only those who knew where to look would ever see. The Harrow climbed. Rhea watched Jupiter shrink in the viewport, feeling the gift humming quietly in her veins and the echo of the Umbreon's frustrated pressure still fading from her mind. She knew this wasn't victory. This wasn't even a battle. It was a single reconnaissance step onto an old battlefield. Seraphine's voice softened. This was the first move, she said. You've seen the cage. He has seen that you remember him. And now? Ria asked. Now, Seraphine replied, he will begin to stir in earnest. Far beneath them, inside the black sphere embedded in Jupiter's heart, the Umbreon fragment flexed against its restraints, shadows coiling tighter. It had learned something new. The children of Andromeda were bright again, and they were close. The heartbeat rose one last time. Badum. Not a greeting, not a test, a promise. You've just heard the first chapter of a war your ancestors tried to erase. The cage inside Jupiter is open. The Umbreon has seen you, and it will not sleep again. This story was brought to you by Nerd Squared. Watch for the continuation. Children of Andromeda, the hive stirs. Don't ignore the pressure at the edge of your thoughts.